Hey there, thinkers. It's me, your girl, Elena Grace, and you're listening to another episode of I've Been Thinking. And thank you very, very much for that. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you guys being here. I know I always say it, but I just want you to know. I am so thankful that you guys are here, that you plug in every other week to listen to me ramble and bullshit and carry on, and it means the world. So thank you for being here. Now, as I'm on that kind of note, I do want to remind you that I've Been Thinking needs your help. So give us a follow wherever you listen, subscribe, whatever it is, and tell your friends about us. Share us on your social media, share us on your Instagram stories, whatever it is. But tell somebody about I've Been Thinking today, because that is how we grow, and that is how we're going to be able to bring you even more incredible and more regular, like it's going to happen more content. So I'd love to get back to a weekly episode release schedule for you guys, and I can't do that unless you're sharing the pod and really helping us grow and get out there. So, again, thank you guys for being here, and now help us get to the next level. Now, for today's episode, I am so excited to bring you this. If you've been around for a while, or you've kind of listened to the whole entire back catalog, this is a voice that you're going to recognize. Today we have Brooke of Brooke and Pippa. They are a YouTube and TikTok sensation, especially back in like kind of 2020 during the real lockdown era. They took off on TikTok. And in case you don't know, they are full-time travelers. So Brooke and Pippa, her little tiny baby puppy dog, they have been traveling for going on 4 years now. And Brooke's going to tell you more about that in this episode. I also highly recommend that you watch her YouTube channel to find out more about what it's like being a full-time traveler, living on the road, living out of a van, out of a camper, and everything in between. She has an amazing story, and we get into it a little bit in this episode, but you can go back to our previous episode and listen to more about it, or you can go find it on her YouTube, Brooke and Pippa. It'll be linked in the show notes, so don't even worry, you don't have to remember that. But in this episode, we're really going to dive into the break that she took from social media about the past year since we're releasing this episode. So she took a really long, strong break from socials, from YouTube, from producing content in general. And we're going to talk more about that, why that is, kind of some of the things that led her to making that decision, because it wasn't an easy one for her. And it certainly wasn't made lightly, we'll say. Not to give too much away. So I really hope that you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope it makes you think a little bit about content creators, how we treat our entertainers and people who create content for us to consume. I hope it gives you something to chew on for the rest of the day. A little thought nugget to chew on. All right, all of that being said, here's Brooke.
Hi, I'm Brooke. I am Brooke of Brooke and Pippa on, I don't know, everywhere. YouTube, everywhere. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, but mostly now just mainly YouTube. Pippa is my dog, I guess I should say that. And we, I don't know, people maybe don't assume dog.
Sure.
So Pippa and I travel full time. We're currently in a travel trailer that I tow. It's 19 feet, but we have been in a Class C, 2 different SUVs, a pop-up, and a cargo trailer that I kind of converted, but we never really lived in it.
Pippa hated
and so we've kind of been
the cargo trailer.
The cargo trailer, yeah, the cargo trailer didn't work out so well. but I did get my money back on that when I sold it. So
Oh, good.
that's fine. But yeah, so we've just kind of been all over the place over the last 4 years. But I think when we talked last, I was in the pop-up, I'm pretty sure.
I think so.
And that was right before it collapsed and my car died in the same weekend, which is why I moved back into another SUV. So, yeah, we've had a lot go on since then, since
Yes.
we've done everything. And I think I was in my first like 6 months of probably being full-time YouTube, and now I'm close to like 2 years, 3 years now full-time.
It's crazy how
remember.
long it's been since we last did an episode together. And that has been, just like for you and the listener, that has been one of our most popular episodes of I've Been Thinking.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yeah. I don't know why.
Oh, I didn't even know.
I don't know why people love it. No, I don't know why that one specifically, but they do. They really do. And I think it is at least partially, I mean, of course, you have a fantastic personality and like the way that you share your story is so good. But I think a lot of people are really intrigued by the whole van life situation.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because, at least from my perspective, that it kind of was something I wanted to do, but then life circumstance kind of forced me into it.
Right.
And so I think there's like an unintentional relatability to that, of like kind of making lemonade out of lemons, where it was like essentially I was going to be homeless, and so I decided, well, instead of being super sad about not having anywhere to live, I'm just going to try to do it van life style, but just out of, well, at that time it was a Class C, and then more things happened, and being in my SUV worked out just by chance. And so I think that's kind of why I wanted to share it online, because I think that's probably more normal than being like, okay, well, in 5 years I'm going to save up all this money and I'm going to buy $100,000 Sprinter van and make sure I get on the road and everything's perfect.
Right.
Life is much more messy than that.
Yeah, and I do think that is one of the things that's been so relatable, like you said, and interesting about your content is at no point is it perfect. And I mean that in the best way. Like, it is so realistic because you don't sugarcoat it. You don't hide the fact that you were kind of like your hand was forced into making the decision to say, I'm going, you, like you said, you wanted to do it anyway, but you said instead of being sad about it and trying to scramble and do something else, you're just going to jump in because why not? And that's kind of how you've handled it from my perspective, like watching as a viewer, but also as, kind of a friend. You take things as they come at you and you try your best to do the best you can with them.
Yeah, and I think over time, obviously, it's harder to do when you're younger, when you haven't had as many experiences, but to see how things kind of like work out then now, I'm just like, I'm so glad even in the tiny ways I fought it, I didn't fight it too hard and I just kind of rolled with it.
Yeah.
Because I think I could have spent a lot of time being very like angry and upset and wasted a lot of time just feeling bad about everything instead of, like, I know it's cliche, but it's like something I've been thinking about a lot lately, where it's just like, I like to live in the delusion that everything happens for a reason. Like, that is a very safe place for me, because the delusion that things will get better, I feel like really truly helps me get through most of what I've done in my life. Because I'm like, well, I can't technically, I guess, get any worse, so it's got to go up from here at some point.
Right.
So I have to try to just keep going instead of fully, collapsing in on myself and just doing nothing.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's something that I've personally been working on a lot lately, because I realize that For example, I would love to do the podcast full time and have that and my art be my full time job, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at this point in time, that's not feasible, truly. It doesn't make me that kind of money.
Yeah.
And but then I think to myself, when I have an actual paying job, I'm like, man, the things I could do if I could dedicate this amount of time to the podcast and my art. Well, that's what I have right now. Right now, I am unemployed other than for myself and
Mm-hmm.
in little like side jobs and commissions and stuff I pick up. And I have all that time. So I need to, instead of being sad about the fact that I don't have a full time paying job, jump on that time that I have while I have it. So anyway,
Yeah.
that's something I've been working on and kind of reframing how I look at it, because it's so easy for me to fall into the depths of despair, like I don't have a full-time job and I got 2 degrees and blah 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 blah, and I'm so sad, and
Mm-hmm.
just lay on the couch instead of taking advantage of what I have.
Yeah. And I think it's part of it too. I think people get very hung up, not saying you specifically, but I've done it myself, so I'm assuming that other people have, because none of us have unique experience, I guess, at this point.
True.
But it's like we think the next decision has to be like the decision.
Mm-hmm.
And I very much like got wrapped up in that so much, where it was like, if I'm going to start something new, I have to go all in and I have to ride that out for the next 5 years and I have to have it all planned out and all the way to the end. Whereas in regular life, things don't work, but at the same time, me trying so many different things has gathered me so many different skill sets now that I have, that when I do have a random idea, I can pull from so many different places. And I feel like it's so nice, I guess, at this point to be able to look back and be like, well, I'm really glad I worked retail. I'm glad I worked, this, that, and the other, because I can talk to whoever. I can relate to these different types of people. And I'm glad that, I ran a business. And even if it technically failed, I learned how to file my taxes that way. And I know how to market myself. And I can apply that to this, that, and the other, instead of just being like, well, I'm just sitting there staring at all of these things I've collected and now I'm doing nothing. And it's just like, I don't know. I have a toxic positive side, I guess, that forces me to keep going. And I try to see the good in most of it instead of just dwelling on it anymore. Because I did used to be that person, but it's exhausting to live like that.
It is exhausting to live like that and to just be like, oh, woe is me, my situation is so messed up, whatever. But I think that that toxic positivity, it has a place sometimes, especially like some people thrive on that. And they
Yeah.
they need that, well, everything happens for a reason, because like you said, it's a pretty good coping mechanism.
Yeah, it's kind of my default. I've dropped a lot of like the really culty stuff, after like my after turning 30, you can see where some of it is kind of toxic. And so I try to keep just like the good parts of all of it, because it's not to say that like obviously I don't have bad days or there isn't things that suck
Right.
or there's not decisions that I've made that like, backfire on me and whatever. But I think it is one of those things that I kind of, even in those moments, I'm like, oh, I have to experience every range of human emotion. This is just one of those days. And it makes me seem like psychotic. But at the same time, I mean, it gets me through. What else can you do?
It's true. And I do think that to myself sometimes too. I'm like, well, you do need to experience all of your emotions. It's part of being a human that's alive. And I'm like,
Yep.
why do I have to do that though? No, but speaking of the full range of emotions, that's kind of one of the things that we wanted to talk about today, because you kind of took a break from content creating for a little while.
I did. I was very burnt out. And I think when you're doing something that is, I think what some people, I think, well, I think even myself didn't think of content creation as kind of an art form or a form of expression for a long time, because I
Yeah.
never really got it. And I think for so long, when you're channeling that in to your work because you need to survive, it's a very different feeling than doing it by choice.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when I bought this trailer, I finally had a second to breathe. I finally had the opportunity to take a second where I didn't need to make videos to pay my bills.
Yes.
And I didn't know then what I wanted to do because I couldn't bridge the gap between doing something for money versus doing something because I love it. And I was really struggling with that for, I guess, now almost a year, I guess, at this point. And so all summer, I kind of posted here and there and just kind of did things that were kind of copying what was a past success of mine, and they worked, like they did whatever, but I think everyone could feel that I wasn't quite in it because I couldn't figure out what I was even supposed to be doing. And then because my private life during that time changed so much, I had never had the places of my life that I had deemed, would never be online fill in. Like, I was always by myself making content on things that I was fine making content on. I never had a significant other that didn't want to be online. I never had like these extraneous family issues that I didn't want to talk about. I didn't have like these other health things happening where I was like off limits, where it was all happening and I was like, okay, now I have this like well-rounded life and I don't know how to balance being online and having more things because I had isolated myself so far.
Totally.
And it just like caught up with me, and I just finally like could not do it anymore because I was like, you're putting out stuff that you're not proud of, and then it's like, what point is there then? If you're not needing the income, why are you doing it? So I was like, I just need to not do it until I figure out what I want to kind of do next.
Yeah, I think that honestly, like, as both a content creator and an artist, I think that is admirable and a good decision, because I think that people can tell when you're creating things that your heart isn't in, and that, or even that your mind almost isn't in. It's like it's too much of your mind. You're not thinking about what is right for you. You, like you said, you're just thinking about what has worked before, because you can definitely tell a difference between things that I create that my heart is in and I'm thinking about it kind of from that kind of perspective, versus things that I'm like, well, people like this, or this is the kind of thing people like to listen to or people like to buy, right?
Yeah.
You can tell a big difference between that, like putting thoughtful intent into something or just saying, I know that this has worked before. So anyway, you can tell a difference, and I think it's really admirable for you to take that step back as a creator, but I also know how important it is for mental health to take that step back.
Yeah, because when you're already feeling like shit about what you're creating and then you're getting it fed back to you with commentary, it really sends you a little bit into a spiral. Like,
for sure.
I've never had someone really witness the spiral either. So when my boyfriend's coming to me and being like, every time you pick up your work phone, your attitude changes so much. He was like, the light literally leaves your eyes. Like, you cannot, like, this isn't something you should be doing. I've never had someone like witness it and like tell me like, you are just like doing this weird thing. Right. Like, you need to figure out, a way to have a healthier relationship with this. And I'm like, that is probably true. That's probably something, because it's like, if you're already feeling bad about it and then someone's telling you it's bad, but then you're defensive because you're like, well, I still put myself out there even if I'm not feeling it.
Yes.
It's a very weird situation, I guess, to be in.
No, it
and
definitely
it was hard for
is.
me to like navigate.
Yeah, I mean, because like you said, you're still putting yourself out there, whether it's something you poured your heart and soul into or not, it still is vulnerable and it still is work that you put into something. So you want to defend it, even if you know it's not your best work. So it's like this ethical, paradoxical dilemma. And you're like, well, I can't stand for somebody to tell me it's bad, but that is probably, but it is. It's probably was really good for you to have that totally objective third party tell you, like, this is clearly hurting you, because it's something that you probably weren't going to come to that conclusion and also make the changes you needed to make on your own.
Yeah, or it would have taken probably a lot longer.
A lot more, yeah.
Yeah. Because even like when we went on our first date, I was like, I'm done with this. Like, people are so mean and blah, blah, blah. Like, I was like already over it. And I was like complaining about it the first day. And he's like, okay, you've been complaining about this since we met. Like, you need to do something
That's so funny.
different. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Okay. And not to like give him all the credit, but it was just like, to like have it affect something else was a different experience for me, because usually I'm just like running around doing whatever I feel like, and it's like, well, then why am I doing even something that I don't feel like, and it's affecting other parts of my life then?
Right.
It just shouldn't even be a thing. Like, it just needs to be something that I have to work out, obviously, on my own. But stepping back from it, and like, I can't put everything down, because I like to also consume content. I think most people who make content do it because they like watching other people's content. But I just was like, I have to just not even think of something new. I have to not try something new for at least a couple months. And luckily I'd pre-filmed most of my stuff, and so I could just kind of take some time. And what really set it over the edge was when I bought my new car, I had people calling dealerships in the area that I bought it, like trying to figure out what car I bought. And I was like, okay, this is too far. So I was like, this is something that, like, not only am I not currently passionate about, but something that I still created, loved, worked really hard to get to this point. And like, this is how people are treating me. And I was like, the relationship with all of this has to change drastically for me to want to continue doing this, because it just was too much. And at the same time, I was then in an area where a lot of travelers are, and I was meeting people in person, and I was seeing the way that they were reacting to me and the things that they would say. And I'm just like, I don't know what this is, but this is not what I want right now. Like, this is just too much.
I mean, people have been frankly psychotic towards you specifically. I know they are to other creators too, but I get to see it very up close and personal with you, and how they treat you and how they speak to you. And the fact that people are always trying to figure out where you're at, and like, I think you do a fabulous job of protecting your safety as much as you can, because like, you don't say where you're at or where you've been until you've already left there, and you know, all that good stuff. And I think that's an amazing security measure that you take. But then, like you said, you're meeting people in real life, so not only do they know where you're physically at, but they're saying these fucked up things to you.
Yeah, like, I even had a guy, I was at Walmart and I was changing out my propane, you know, like, very normal RV life tasks, right? Like, I just was trying to get my propane out, to put it in a cart, to take it to go exchange it. And a literal just man comes out of nowhere and goes, I want to take your picture. No hi, no hello, just, I want to take your picture. And I, of course, look at him and I go, why? And he was like, you don't need to be rude. I know who you are. And I go, I don't know who you are. Like, that doesn't, like, that's not a normal interaction, especially because I don't have millions of followers. I am not anything I could consider celebrity status, where I should just be assuming that every person that comes up to me in a parking lot knows who I am. Right. Like, you're a creepy man telling me you want to take a photo of me. You don't want to be in the photo. You just want to take it of me in this parking lot.
Yeah.
Like, that is not a normal interaction when I'm doing, like, my daily chores. Like, this isn't something that, like, is, you know, okay, I guess.
Right.
Even just to a normal human being. I wouldn't interact with somebody like that regardless.
So if someone came up to me and I was walking my dog and said, I want to take a picture of you, I'd say no, and I'd call the cops.
Yeah, for real. I was just like, hello? Like, you could just say, like, oh, hi, like, are you Brooke? It's so nice to, like, run into you in this Walmart. Like, do you want to take a picture for my wife or whoever, like, wants it or whatever?
Right.
But it's like, I'm a person. I'm not even close to being a celebrity. I am very much in my sweatpants doing a task right now. Like, this isn't something that I should just assume that every time I go in public that people are just going to happen to know me and I'm like at the zoo where you could just take pictures of me. Like, that's so weird. That's not like anywhere close to even the vibe I put out online of what I would accept anyways.
Right.
As like an interaction. I don't think I come across like I would be nice if you did something like that
don't.
in person. I feel like I'm very clear that I will kind of be rude to you. You are kind of rude to me.
You were very clear about that, frankly. Like, you...
I don't think I come off, like, very nice.
You don't. No, you, like, if somebody says something to you that's even mildly weird or rude, you're like, okay, fuck off then. Like,
yeah,
you do not mince words. And I think that is so refreshing, like, from a content creator, because you're not allowing yourself to be commodified. And that's kind of how people want to treat, like, that's how that man was treating you. Like, you weren't a person anymore. You were, like you said, like an animal in a zoo, a commodity that he could just be like treat as if you're not a human.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's an interesting thing that's happened, and it's been recent. It hasn't been at, like, my quote-unquote, like, height of, like, whatever, like, numbers
Internet
and
fame.
Stuff. It's very different now, and so I know it's people who probably watch me consistently that are now behaving this way, which is the part that confuses me a lot, because I'm like, okay, if you've watched me for that long, you would know that I literally complained about this for so long. Like, this isn't something that should surprise you if I'm a little, like, off-put by how you behave. And, well, that was what I was going to say after the Walmart, after I'd done the other stuff, and I was looking through, like, the clearance section, because, again, I'm still the same person of, like, what I post, so I'm, of course, digging through the clearance section to find, you know, $5 shorts or whatever. And someone comes up to me and they were like, do you post on YouTube? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, oh, so you don't really have a boyfriend then? Like, I don't see him anywhere. And I was like, what? And she was like, well, you're not here with your boyfriend, like, so you've just been making it up? And I was like, no, just because he didn't walk into, like, the literal lion's den of traveler Walmarts and didn't come with me. No, both of us had this conversation that this has happened to me at this Walmart before and that he did not want to come. And I'm like, no, he's actually not here because of this exact interaction. And then same thing. Like, she kind of turned around and was, like, off-put about it and was like, well, you know, you really do look a lot bigger online than you do in person. I understand why you get, like, hate comments about why you're fat and stuff like that. And, like, kind of, like, backtracked it because she didn't like that, like, I, you know, kind of, like, not confronted her. Yeah, but, like, just kind of, like, didn't react the same way. But I'm like, you came at me, like, with your conspiracy theory that I think I'm important enough to make up an entire relationship. Like, most of my brand at the beginning was that I was, like, single woman, I hate men, like, blah, 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 you know what I mean? So I was like, why wouldn't I have just kept that going? Why would I all of a sudden just pretend to be in a relationship for, like, a long time now?
None of it, none of that makes sense. And then to top it all off with, well, you look fat online.
Yeah, like you're actually like thinner in person. I can see why you get comments though that you're fat online. And it's
Didn't
like
she?
so you're just like signing off on the fact that like it's fine that I get
Right.
hate online because like it shouldn't affect me because I actually like am not as fat as I look. Like thanks.
And didn't she actually use the word like obese?
I can't remember what it was. It was
I would,
something like that.
because I talked to you that same day, and I would almost put money down that she literally, or I talked to you
Maybe.
right after that, she literally used the word "you look obese" online, and I
Yeah.
was like, "What in what world is it okay to say something like that to somebody?" And
I
in
have no clue.
like in person too, not just hiding behind
Yeah,
a
like to
keyboard.
my face.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of like where things have gone recently. And I don't know if it's people who are just chronically online that like literally cannot make it in the real world now. Like they think what they see is true to the point where they like, I don't know what it is. There's something about it, and I've talked about it with like a few people before, but there's something now about the separation between content creator or influencer or whatever you want to call it and people who are chronically online that goes like kind of beyond parasocial where they think everything is kind of like an advertisement and a conspiracy theory and we're just doing this for numbers. We're just behaving the way that we are to gain more followers or fame or money or whatever it is. They're not seeing it like, oh, this is my job. And yes, I do certain things for my job. But at the end of the day, I still go do XYZ like everybody else.
Yeah.
It's just that sometimes you get to see it and sometimes you don't. It's not, everything is not a ploy to go viral and to do this or that. Like, I think even with me, my ploys to go viral are very obvious. Like, if I'm making bathroom
Yes.
content, I'm doing that to get a paycheck that month. That is exactly what that is.
Right.
Because I know it's going to piss people off. I'm not making like conspiracy theory content of like if I have a boyfriend or not. Because I don't think anybody cares.
No, that's so like that's such a perfect way to put that because truly like when you're making content just to like you said just to check a box whatever, you can tell. For you
Yeah.
personally, you can absolutely tell and you can tell for a lot of other creators too,
Well, because
whether
they follow a
it's
formula. We've figured it
yeah,
out. Like, if I know I want to get 1 million views on something, I know exactly what to say. And I know
yeah,
exactly how to phrase that video. It's not me shopping in the clearance section at Walmart, baby. That's not
no,
what it is.
no. It's so funny. That is so
It's
funny.
just weird.
No,
But
it
there has been
totally
a
is.
shift again lately. It used to be like a visceral hatred, and now I feel like it's more of like a, I don't know, maybe everybody's like on Reddit too much, like dissecting people's
I
actions,
think so.
or I don't know what it is. But it's very interesting, especially because now it's seeped into real life. And I'm like,
Right.
ugh. I'm like, what is this?
No, I think
Get
that
off
that,
the internet. Go
that
watch like actual TV or something.
right, go watch actual TV. Go touch some grass, like
Go watch
literally.
like an actual drama because it's not my life, I guarantee
Right.
you.
No, and you see it I don't like I'm not trying to bring this back to Taylor Swift,
Oh
but
yeah.
I'm gonna be honest, like you see that kind of thing with Taylor Swift fans, you see that kind of thing with Beyonce fans, with all kinds of
Yes.
musical fans, celebrity fans, like everything. It's always, and obviously Taylor Swift does do it because she likes, and she has talked about how she likes putting Easter eggs in her music videos and in how she does things,
Yeah.
right? Where it literally is a clue. But now people have taken that so far off the hinges that they're like, Taylor Swift wore her hair up in a ponytail
Yeah.
to the Sydney Zoo yesterday. What do you think that means?
Well, and it's also to follow Taylor Swift. It's also that same theorization that her moves are only for PR. They're
Yes,
only for a paycheck, which great. I'm glad everyone's getting paid. You know what I mean? Like who cares at this point?
absolutely.
We're consuming it and we're all eating it up. But that doesn't mean that billionaire Taylor Swift strategy applies to 100,000 follower YouTuber that you're
Yeah. Yeah.
watching. Like,
Literally.
we're not using the same strategy here. It's just me with my phone.
Right.
I'm not calling the paparazzi here. I'm not even sure if they'd show up. It would have to be, I think, my boyfriend in the parking lot taking the pictures. Like, it's not.
We're
happening.
not even like 2000 Lindsay Lohan calling the paparazzi. Like, this is not. No, that's not the kind of situation we're at here.
And I think people can't separate it anymore,
they can't.
which is even more interesting because I'm like, okay, well, people for so long were like, okay, well, any internet influencer person, like, you're not famous, you're not that cool.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you're treating us like that, like we are this, calculated, manipulative, weird performance artist, like, you're only giving us permission, I guess, to be like that. And I'm sure some people take advantage of it, but like, I don't have enough time in my day to care that much, to be honest.
No.
I have other things I'm doing.
Right. And then I think it's also interesting that there's such this like weaponization almost of like, I mean, we see this a lot nowadays, like weaponization of therapy speak and that kind of thing where people are like, oh, well, she is whatever. They like go into diagnosing people and guessing all kinds of things about people's sexuality or about their intentions or whatever, and they think that they know everything because they watched a YouTube video on psychology or whatever it is, and then they dissect hours and hours worth of your YouTube videos or if somebody's TikToks or whatever, and they're like, I think Brooke has XYZ. And then that affects how they think of you as people, because they're not really thinking of you as a person anymore. They're thinking of you as like this fun game to diagnose or as this, whatever it is.
It's very weird.
Yeah, it's very weird. There's so much dehumanization, I think, about anybody that you see on a screen or even, that you hear through your earbuds or whatever it is. Somebody that is a performer or a creator or whatever it is. The people who are consuming that, I think, are more and more, like you've said, separating themselves from the reality of the fact that most of the time these are just genuinely people creating because it's something they like to do.
It is just one of those things that I feel like over the years have always been an issue, but I think it's less parasocial anymore and more like monitoring. Like, I want to say, like, it's like this hyper vigilant observation, like where they're trying to dissect everything, and even if it has no meaning, they're putting meaning to it.
Yeah, I think that sums up what I was trying to say really, really well, because I was like struggling to put my words together. And I think that it's come really far from when people thought that everything on TV or everything on the internet was inherently true, and now they tend to think that everything on the internet is a lie. So whatever you're talking about, whether it's how you used the bathroom when you lived out of your SUV, or whether it's Pippa's safety, everything in between, people say, okay, well, she's obviously not telling the truth because she has a platform.
It is something that I'm not sure, I guess, what it's going to be moving forward. But I think for me, I think when I decided to kind of come back, I do have like a future plan in mind for my content. But I did decide to remove a lot of, like, I have way more hard no's now because of that, to be able to come back. Like the dissection, the people who keep score and keep tally on things. I have to be more aware of now. And
For sure.
so it is going to be one of those things that I think is going to be more of an expression of some sort of artistic side rather than like I'm going to let you watch the parts of my life that I'm showing,
Mm-hmm.
and I can use, storytelling and whatever to continue to provide content, but the way that certain aspects of my following have behaved in the past, I cannot share in a casual way that makes them feel like they have access. Like
Right.
I
And
need it
like
to
they're
be removed.
entitled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's how a lot of people start. Like we all start just talking to the phone, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like cuz we don't know anything else. And I think over time more you see it like happen to everyone pretty much. Like you start, you get all of this attention and it's really exciting and you want to share and you want to connect and you want to be like so authentic until you find out how dangerous it is to let so many people in, and then you're like, okay, I gotta reel this back in, and then that's
Yeah.
usually when people don't like that you pull away. But it's kind of like if you give a mouse a cookie, people are going to keep digging, and not every part of my life needs to be online, but I'm also not going to walk away from something I love doing. So just shifting the focus, I think, is the healthier adaptation of the best of both worlds, I guess.
Yeah. No, I think you're exactly right. And I've seen that with loads of other creators and influencers where they've done the exact same thing. They posted and posted because that's how they gain their following and giving that intimate view of their life. And then they realized that not only did they not need to do that anymore because they had so many followers, they could afford to take a step back, but also they shouldn't do that anymore because they had so many followers and it was literally affecting their life and their families' lives and whatever else it is because it's
Mm-hmm.
dangerous.
Yeah, it does start to be that part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I don't know. I wish, I guess, it wasn't that way, but I think it's only natural for it to just have to happen that way. Because it's like, okay, if you have a group of 5 friends, sure, you're going to be really intimate with them and want to tell them, everything you're thinking. But as soon as you start to get introduced to more and more people, you can't share every detail because you don't know the intentions of all of those new people, you're
Right.
meeting. You're not going to stand up on a stage in an auditorium and tell the same story the same way you would tell to your friends.
Yeah. No, I think that sums it up really nicely.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. That's super interesting. Thank you for coming on and talking about this with us today because this has been honestly really thought provoking and hopefully it gives people kind of pause and lets them think about content creators a little bit differently and hopefully as real people if they didn't
Yeah.
already see them that way.
Well, because everyone, no matter what level of fame people have, they always have that they are real people. And so I feel like just because you see someone as having a certain level of fame doesn't even mean they themselves feel that way about it
Mm-hmm.
or act like that or have that every single day of their life. Like it's for most people a portion of their job
Yeah.
in a way that's maybe sometimes not monetarily their job, but it's something they're putting time and effort into in a dedicated space that's not, every single second of their life.
Yeah. Yeah. You're exactly right.
Sometimes, I don't know. I'm sure other people have different thoughts about it,
Well,
but that's how I feel about it from my side.
yeah. No, I'm sure people do have other thoughts on it, but I think that your thoughts are very valid and very truthful, especially because they're based on your experience with
Hmm.
this. So I think it's really important for people to consider, for example, your perspective and your viewpoints on it because you're literally living it. And that's what we're here to do at
Yes.
I've Been Thinking, is to have these conversations like this.
No, yeah. And it's not to say, even after all of that, that I obviously don't want to continue doing it. It's just that over time things have to evolve, and I think that's good too, to change things up and keep growing with it. Once you learn more, you can do more with it instead of having to try to be the same person forever. Because I think as much as maybe people would want me to still be the same person that was, first got on TikTok live and I was live streaming for like 10 hours a day and whatever, like I just can't be that person anymore because it's been years. I've had more things happen. I've evolved and I have to keep, doing what feels good. And so I can stay in this space instead of just burning out and never coming back.
Absolutely. No, I think we could have a whole another like hour-long 45-minute episode where we talk about just entitlement specifically, because I think that that's something that content creators deal a lot with. And that's something I'd be super interested into diving into more, actually. So maybe that's a hint at something we'll do in the future.
For sure. Wouldn't mind that at all. I definitely have my thoughts on it.
I love it. Well, Brooke, is there anything you want to like leave us with as we wrap up?
I don't know. I think I feel like whether it is content creators or even if you can just apply it to your own life, if you have certain places that you feel maybe underappreciated or you're not putting the amount of passion into something again, it doesn't mean that you need to completely quit and throw away every single thing that you've worked for. Like you can take a step back in the way that you can in your own capacity to kind of reevaluate your relationship with it and maybe just approach it from a different angle instead of throwing everything away and starting from a clean slate. Because I think anymore, a lot of us can't afford to just have a clean slate and move across the country or quit our job. And so I think it's more just reflecting on which parts of it maybe don't feel good and just redefine your relationship rather than throwing all the progress away that you've made. I don't know. Is that profound? Maybe? Hopefully.
No, I think that's fabulous advice. I really do.
So yeah, I think everyone should do that. Even if it's just a relationship or just your routine before you go to work, just to make something feel a little bit different. You don't know what impact that small change can probably have overall.
Yeah, I think that is really, really good advice and something I'm definitely gonna take to heart personally. I mean, because I have my little routines and I'm like, why do I do this way? Because, it's boring. So I'm gonna start trying to apply that for sure.
There you go.
Yeah. Brooke, where can the listener find you if they don't already follow you?
I am at Brooke and Pippa everywhere. So YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. I've just restarted posting, so I may not be fully consistent just yet, but I do have, I don't know, this is so cliche, big things coming.
You heard it here first, folks. She's got big things coming.
I don't know. I've put a lot of work into what I've, even though my break was supposed to be a break, I have been working on things on the side. So it's not that I'm just saying like, oh, I'm coming back and then never posting again. So there are things to watch, but it's just going to not be in the same capacity as before. But I think that might be good for everybody to see a different side of Brooke and Pippa.
Yeah, I'm really excited for what comes next because
thanks.
I've heard little things here and there, and I'm excited.
Yeah, you already have the sneak peeks.
I got the inside scoop, y'all, and it's good.
Yeah, it'll be good. It'll be fun.
Well, thank you, Brooke, so much for being here, and
thanks for chatting again.
Of course, hopefully the listener finds you everywhere.
Yay!
Guys, thank you again so much for listening to today's episode. I really hope you loved it. It gave me so much to think about. Brooke and I actually talked for another 10 or 15 minutes after we stopped recording, just because the conversation was so good. And we kind of continued on. I told her, I said, I wish I was still recording this, because I would drop this too. I would include this in it. And she was like, this is just a little freebie for you. No, but such a good conversation, and I'm really glad that we got to have this conversation and got to bring it to you, because it's a perspective that I think is lost on a lot of people, especially nowadays, or kind of recently at least. We talk a lot about how things have been changing with how people treat content creators and kind of how they react to that whole situation. So really interesting, and definitely something that I think we're gonna be having more conversations about and seeing develop in interesting ways. Now, I would love for you guys to follow Brooke and Pippa at Brooke and Pippa, BROOKEANDPIPPA, on all channels, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, all of those. And I would also love for you guys to follow I've Been Thinking wherever you listen. So at I've Been Thinking Pod on Instagram, on TikTok, and I've Been Thinking Pod with Elena Grace on YouTube and on Facebook. So give us a follow wherever you listen. Subscribe, whatever it is. And if you'd like to kick us a few bucks here or there, email me and I'll send you a Venmo. Or you can subscribe to our Patreon, patreon.com/I've Been Thinking Pod, and you can subscribe there for a little bit extra content. So thank you guys so very much for being here, and we'll talk at you next time. Bye. This episode of I've Been Thinking was hosted by me, Elena Grace Campbell. It was edited and produced by Tyler Miller. And we are proudly presented by Stoveleg Media.